This is the live mic. I assemble the logo.
Yeah. Yep.
Set it right there and point this in.
Just like that. Perfect. Everybody have mic? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the 37th session of the Charter Commission, June 13th, 2024, 6 p.m. at the Bowen Senior Center. Roll call.
It's 6:32. Commissioner Barrow, Garrett,
President.
Killian, Haynes, Ramsey, Stewart,
Here.
Griffin,
Here.
Williams,
President.
Ibarra.
Here. All right, can I get Philly in here? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. All right, December. Can I get a motion to excuse Chairman Ramsey? So, I take the move from Hank for Stewart. Any discussion? And roll call?
Commissioner Garrett,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Haynes, Stewart,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Ibarra,
Yes.
Barrow.
Yes.
8 days.
All right. Which brings us to amendment to the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda as is. So, support by Gary. The move by Stewart, supported by Gary. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Killian,
Yes.
Haynes, Stewart,
Yes.
Griffin, Williams,
Yes.
Ibarra,
Yes.
Barrow, Garrett.
Yes.
8 days.
Agenda is approved. Now I need a motion to approve the minutes of the June 13th, 2024 meeting. Support. Moved by Killian, supported by Ibarra. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Haynes, Stewart,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Ibarra,
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
8 days.
Okay, which brings us, I want to ask the body, because we have public comment here after the presentation. Would y'all like to do public comment before the presentation or after? Will the body? This is because of the speak first. Yeah, I'm I agree. I think we'll have regular public comment before the presentation, and then if somebody has questions afterward, then we'll allow for questions. Is that good? Okay, I need a motion to suspend the rules. Support by Gary. Movement. Second. Any discussion? Roll call. Stewart.
Stewart,
Yeah.
Griffin, Williams,
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Haynes. Rules suspended.
All right, which brings us to public comment. Oh, no, we need a motion to have public comment before and after. Moved by Gary, support by Stewart. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Person, Williams,
Yes.
Yvonne,
Yes.
Burrows,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
and eight yes.
All right, thank you. Sheila, do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay, is anybody in the audience that wants to speak public comment? Okay. All right, brings us to the special presentation of the 2024 charter. I will pass it over to Commissioner Stewart.
They are looking at getting it on the screen. Does anyone have a copy of it at all? Did they get it out to you? Okay, so then I can at least go ahead and get started. Then when I get it on the screen, I can look out there. So thank you all for letting me know. So, as you all know, unless you want. Perfect. Make my life easier. All right, well then hold on one moment. But as you all know, we passed this, or we at least passed the charter commission in for this charter together in August. We got elected in, or not August 2023, we got elected in May of 2022. So what that gave us was about 2 years to actually put this together. So August was the time frame that we had to get this on the ballot. So we did a lot of intensive work. We met consistently for quite a many months, quite a year, to really go through every single provision. And one thing that I'd like to highlight as we went through this charter is that we went each line by line and reviewed each line and then voted. So like 1.1, we voted on that as a team. So I like to highlight that because I think it talks to the fact that we spent a lot of time as a commission really going through this. Then we had a lot of meetings with our attorneys, and we had a lot of meetings with the state, so we had a lot of feedback and a lot of negotiation on this. But we had to go a little bit quicker to make sure that everything would happen. So I think that we came with a really good product, and I think that our hope is that we can figure out what we can do here. Like, there's some good provisions that we added in to make this. I don't know how to look at the screen, but I know that our key person will figure it out. Okay. Okay, so the charter again has been revised. Let's go ahead and get started. What we wanted was to give you all that there is a red line version as well, the version that we have that wanted to look at feedback, sales, going to a higher level, but really go through each of the. So we'll start with updating the charter to reflect currency dynamics. So one of the things, of course, right, is that there's a lot of things in our 1984 charter that are no longer relevant, right, because the city operates much differently in 2024. So we wanted to make sure to highlight this. I'm sorry, 1982. Sorry. So many years to think about the 1982. And so one of those pieces was the revitalization of the preamble. So what we did was we added this down here. And what I will highlight to you is really that we made sure to highlight that this is for Pontiac Drive for current and future generations, right? Because our hope is that this will be a document that can live beyond many of them. We updated the city election language. So we kept it where the election again will be in the odd years. We had some inspiration, but we figured it would be best to have it with the election year. But in really ensuring compliance with federal laws and clarifying that again, city elections are not partisan. And please, at any point, we updated election commission language. So one of the things that I'll note on this one is that the election commission was previously our city treasurer or our city attorney. So those three positions, we said that really doesn't give a lot of ability for citizens to be involved. That kind of looks a little bit skewed in some ways. A lot of, so what we added was we added the addition of 2 residents to be appointed by the city council, as well as the city staff member appointed by the mayor, instead of the city attorney. They can engage council. But we thought that would even it out a little bit different from resident feedback. What that leaves is the city treasurer and city clerk are still involved. They're clerk will serve as that chair. And they do have the ability to hire assistant inspectors, whatever they need to do to kind of get that question. There were some challenges in this last time, kind of the walk process. We wanted to make sure that was up to for fairness of our budget. We also updated ordinance meeting. I updated that signal. Updating transfer to property and contract. So does that approval with council. Contracts need council approval if funds are inefficient, particularly. We did add a piece in on parklands that cannot be sold without electric majority vote, including public recreation areas. There was a lot of conversation we had with folks that they really wanted to make sure that our land was protected, so we wanted to enhance that. Enhancing resident involvement in property decisions, and then removing exception. It was an exception and talked about minor property and our attorney doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of pieces that we talked about on that, so we got rid of that. In the effort of making this again firm, we do not own the hospital anymore. I still work out of that one, so not at it, but out of it. And so we removed that to make sure that it again reflected firm.
And just to clarify, just because we removed the official city hospital charter does not mean it can't get back added at a certain point in time, when or if the city officially established the city hospital again. This is just to reflect present time and future generations, but there is always an opportunity to add it back.
Department heads, that is another area that we looked at. So we modified language to broaden to department heads. Again, some of this is a bit minuscule, but we all know that the charter is important to reflect pieces, right? So by all means, minuscule to life, but it's important as we move to the city, right? So we had directors in there, even in our current city structure, most of those folks are managers who are running departments. So we modified it to be a broader one there. We also brought in assessment services. So we appoint a city assessor or contract for assessment services. So we broadened it, right? Allowed it. But I think in any of those departments, what we really noted was we're broadening it, but it still allows us to have our, right? So I think we thought that was important. Contract for services, or we can have our own. So there is no limitation for it. Because we know that the city is going to have. So that's I think important to know, right? That there's our current charter just says we operate with like that department up. That's not necessarily how we're operating. That goes into the point around the fire department, right? So while we're looking at this, we wanted to make sure that we update it to reflect where we're at with some opportunities for future growth. So we said cities are mandated to provide fire services. We have the option to establish a fire department within our executive branch as needed. Of course, that fire chief operates under the mayor's supervision, and then it's not going to those external agencies, which we are already doing, right, with Waterford, but now it allows us that. It says that. Again, doesn't say that we're only going to do that. It doesn't say that we're only going to have one. It allows us to have either end. On the same level, that is how the currently operating force contract county sheriff, and so central establishment, again, it still allows that establishment internal if we'd like to, but it allows for that external contracting for law enforcement agencies and ensure compliance with all of that. Of course, the police always the mayor through the executive branch. Revised budget section. So a lot of, I think, over the last couple of years, we've seen that budgets have passed really wildly over the last couple of months. And so what we did was we said that the mayor has to submit a budget proposal 75 days before the fiscal year, which they were in agreement with, and then must be adopted at least 30 days before each fiscal year. So we should be having these discussions a little bit earlier than we're having them now. That allows us for additional pieces. Of course, the budget must be balanced. There's no excess expenditures on that. I noted again, the fiscal year doesn't change. It's July 1st. That's municipal fiscal years. But the one piece that we added in here was having an independent annual audit of the city's accounts within 180 days of each fiscal year. So we thought that was best practice. Having an additional audit, an independent audit, is super important. That was something that we added in as a requirement. The city attorney, of course, actually we do have an internal city attorney now, so this is a little bit different, but nonetheless, similar to the police and fire departments, this allows us the ability to contract or have an internal city attorney. And this is a great example of how there's that flexibility, right? There may be at some point where we need to have the flexibility, but at least this allows us to do that. What we added in terms of duties and responsibilities was a bit of clarity on language based on things that we've seen happen in the past. And so we said that they are drafting, reviewing contracts, all those pieces based on proper form. It doesn't mean that if it goes to the city attorney that if they don't do it, then it doesn't pass, right? So that's what I think is important to note there. And that they're advising on these contracts, as attorney does, right? And please also feel free to ask us any questions if you have them as we go, because I know it's a lot of content. And I know I'd be like, what did they talk about 10 minutes ago? I don't remember. So you're more than welcome. Go ahead.
Let me ask the question here.
Can you come, Miss Gloria, can you come to the microphone, please? It's right over here. Just because it's being recorded, I want to make sure everybody can hear. Matter of fact,
What about that mic?
no, I'm saying,
But you got to get through all those people.
just put on, put that down when you speak.
Thank you.
And then you can sit over there, push it down.
Yeah, you can pass it around.
Yeah. Don't bump into nobody now.
Yeah, make sure it's pressed down. Looks like it's not.
You can also, when you come to the,
Yeah, we just so bad for having everybody walk so far.
I guess I'm going through this, I'm looking at your proposal, your presentation. First of all, I know I talk fast also.
But please, I'm catching up, so you're good.
I'm going to slow it down so that we can go through this, because I was looking through.
Sure.
We came to the point, I was making some correspondence.
Yeah, please.
Especially when we came to update the Elections Commission language.
Sure, yeah.
And so there will be two people added from the community.
Yep.
Serve on this commission, is that right?
That is correct,
Okay.
yeah.
So when people are talking about this, they can understand this, so that there won't be no
Thank you.
misconception about what's going on, who's what. So
Yep.
I just made that.
Thank you.
Now, another thing, the council will now meet twice a month instead of every week.
Yes.
That is something that's very important for people to know all about.
Yep.
That they will no longer be meeting, every single week of the month.
Yeah, just want to note that the Pontiac City Council is the only council in the state that's mandated to meet every week by the current 1982 charter.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, because to us, that's a lot of meetings for.
Believe
But
that.
people are gonna ask that, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna ask, oh, so not meeting every week, now they're coming twice a month.
Go ahead, Jose.
And just to reassure, we worked with the clerk's office as the Charter Revision Commission to send out a mailer, and which entails that information that speaks about the majority of what we're discussing today. But to your point, it also does include that we did update the meetings from every week to now twice a month. So that is included in the mailer that will be sent out to the community of Pontiac.
Perfect. Great. Thank you for your comments and your clarity. I appreciate it. Just noting on the assessment of taxes and that chapter, again, I think we didn't make as many changes on that. It seems that, talking with our attorney and talking with the departments, that was a good piece. I think what we did change was that taxes are payable without penalty through July or through August, and so September 1st is when interest comes. Before it was just July, so we added in the August piece. So we added some pieces on that, some publishing pieces. So we wanted to make sure that there was consistency there and some good pieces pieces. We restructured some of the personnel matters chapter, and really, I think, we've had affirmative action here. Unfortunately, that is no longer allowed in that capacity, so we moved it to equal opportunity, making sure that we're talking around the equal opportunity to work, to contract, all of those pieces at the city. We did add in some conflict of interest pieces around hiring. We'll get into some broader conflict of interest pieces as we move along, but we wanted to note that and some vacancy pieces for office. So we added in a lot of different pieces on those ends. So that was some of our kind of updating the charter. Here's some things that we added. So one of the things that I will note is our 1982 charter has nothing in it focused on ethics, focused on transparency, focused on any of those pieces. So for me, I don't know, my moral ground is a little strong sometimes, but I was like, we need to add some pieces in here. It's wild that we don't have anything in the charter that speaks to how we work as an ethical city, right? And so we added in a lot to these pieces. We created some general ethical standards that are required for every single person. So they apply to all city public servants. They prioritize public interests and prevent conflicts, and I think that's really what we are missing quite a bit, right? The maintenance of supporting city ordinances, some prohibitions and how they operate, some restrictions, and we'll kind of go through that, some rules to ensure transparency, integrity, and governance. And so there's a lot of pieces that focus on that. Go ahead. Yeah.
On all these parts that you're adding, the ethics standards, are listed, going to be listed individually, so it's
Yes.
they are. Okay.
Yep, and if you do want, we do have actually a red line version here, so if you have interest in, but you can look through those specific provisions.
I just think the community is going to want
Yeah.
to know what they are when you're saying prohibitions, doing the same, where does that include? So just to list some of the things that you have in mind, show exactly what they are, just not the head titles itself. That's what I'm saying.
Might as well just pull it up now, right? So, here's an example. I put it on the screen so you won't be able to see it in the audience for your own, and I apologize. I will read some. I know it is small, but hopefully it looks better online. So things like a public servant shall not willfully or grossly neglect the discharge of their duties. They shall not use or disclose confidential information regarding government affairs. They shall use property of the city except in accordance with policies and procedures of the city. So there's a couple examples of what that looks like. Some disclosure requirements. I think I had noted it, but some disclosure requirements. So things like any financial interest, right, in a product, in a contract, in a business, needs to be disclosed, right? Listen, it's funny because I work at a small nonprofit and I do this for my whole job every time, right? And we don't have that as a city as a requirement. Now, we can rely on our people to pass rules for that, but we need to be required to cover that, right? Any interest that they or an immediate family member have in real or personal property, all of those pieces, right? Probably things that you see every day in your life, with the workplace, with anything, we added that as requirements. In addition, that's for contractors and vendors. Do you think that's important that anybody working with the city needs to disclose those pieces as well? Gifts and gratuities is another big piece that we added in here. If you receive gifts, what does that look like, right? All those pieces need to be documented. They're not allowable in many ways, so there's a lot of prohibitions that we added in here. And a couple things that we said, okay, like these are some instances where that is allowable. Some things like an award publicly presented. Okay, great. We know elected officials and other people get awarded. That's fine. So those are some of the things that we really worked through. And I appreciate these questions, so thank you. So, I think the next piece of that, let me just get through this piece, and then I can always go back to that if needed. But we did create lobbying, registration, and reporting. So, I know that that's something that is done on the state and federal level, but that's something we've done on the city. And so it's important that our lobbyists register if they're doing work in our city, documentation with the city clerk, all those pieces. So we added that in as lobbying. But I noted the gift and gratuity section. So again, they cannot accept gifts for the most part, except for things like public service awards or informational materials, gifts from family, expenses for official city events or activities, all that kind of stuff. We did create a 1-year post-employment prohibition, mostly for those high-level public servants, right? So we wanted to make sure that they were not immediately going from it, just like we kind of had that conversation like this on the federal level, where everybody leads, or state level, where everybody leads their job and goes becomes a lobbyist and does all this work. We wanted to create some time for people to have some wiggle room around that and get them away. So they're prohibited from lobbying or appearing before city bodies in some ways. There's no compensation for services related to past involvement, all those kind of things. Or cannot join agencies with past city business ties. So there's a lot of prohibitions in that we really wanted to make sure that I've seen a little bit of. So we wanted to make sure that there were some things in there on that. Created contracts voidable and rescindable, so contracts can be voided for undisclosed public service interests. So that's, I think, another critical piece, right? So again, huge ethical piece. If we find that you did not disclose, we can void that contract, right? So there's a lot of pieces in there on that. So contractors can face fines for that. It's important that we note that. So not only is it on the city official side, but it's also on the contractor side. And so it's important that both are working in tandem on that to make sure that they're being above board, right? There's also a lot of prohibitions in here around city campaign activities. So mostly making sure that we are not using city property, city anything, not working on city time. So political campaigning is not allowed during work hours. City property use for campaigns is strictly forbidden. No request for campaign participation or contributions, coercion for campaign support, forbidden for employment. So rules ensuring professionalism, impartiality, and resource integrity. So that was really the intent around that, was making sure that our folks were not using public time for that. I will slow down a little bit on this one because this is a really new section. And so one of the things that we had talked around, and I know that we are a small city, but one of the things that we have a lot going on in the city of Pontiac all the time. And so while this may not be what I would suggest in every other city, we suggested this for Pontiac as a Office of Public Integrity. And what that means is that there will be a public integrity officer that is appointed. It will be an independent office. So a good example of this, and again, Pontiac is not Detroit, but Detroit has an inspector general that has the ability to do investigations, to look in deeper into things. That is something that has been really useful for them to see how is our city operating, how is it following those ethics rules. Because I thought, okay, great that we put these ethics rules in place. Who's going to enforce them, right? If our city attorney is under the executive office, all these pieces, we needed something that was independent in some ways, right? And so that's what we added this in for. So what this looks like is it's on the public integrity officer, the head of that department. It is an office that is independent. And really the goal is to ensure honesty, integrity in city government and aim to root out waste, abuse, fraud, and corruption, right? So it's not meant to be a body that is doing investigations all the time. It's not meant to be some crazy piece, but really it's meant to take some of those. So an example, right? I hear people say wild things all the time at a city council meeting, right? Like, you're making money off of this. And I'm like, oh, wow, like that's an accusation, right? That's not fair for someone to come up and just blast someone without any proof. And then, then I hear that out in the community many times. That, oh, well, I heard that these people are taking money from this tribe. I said, well, that's not really fair, right? Because that can ruin people's reputations. Whether that's a city, whether that's a contractor, whether that's whatever, right? And so I don't think that's fair for anyone serving in any role, right? Whether that's a city employee, whether that's a contractor, that they get this. So that was some intention around this, right? That's not fair for anyone in these cases.
So Scott, you comment?
Yeah, please.
So this is, we can add a little bit more to exactly like how a public integrity officer gets appointed, things of that nature.
Yep.
That was one of the questions that came up for me, not that came up to me when I was trying to explain it. Very supportive of it. I think it's something that we definitely need in this particular time that we're in, just period. So
Yep. I'll be better. So appointment, removal, term of office, and vacancy. So it is the public integrity officer is appointed for a 6-year term. And that requires a city council majority, but it also requires the mayor's concurrent vote, right? So they basically have to agree on that. And while that can definitely have its challenges, it's meant to make it so that nobody's getting favor either way, right? The executive branch and the legislative branch should be working together to get that person in. To remove that person, you have to have a 3/4 city council vote. So it cannot just be removed willy-nilly. It is a higher level threshold to remove that person, because there is no way that if they investigated the city council member and they can get all their friends to do it, that has to have a higher threshold. And so that was an important piece that we noted in there. They are not, I don't know if there is one thing that they are not subject to recall provisions, I don't believe. But the vacancy is filled within 90 days before a new term. So if we added these pieces in here, I can always go through a little bit more deeply. But I think the biggest pieces in there is that we added heightened controls to make sure that they are not subject to some of the pressures on the other side, right? Because if they're going to do their job well, they need to make sure that they're not going to lose their job every 5 minutes. I would make it to a federal level right now where our Speaker of the House gets told, hey, you're going to be voted out if you do anything, right? Like, that's not what we want out of this. I wanted to speak a little bit about qualifications. So what we were thinking on this one was that, we left it a little bit lower, just an associate's degree, just for opportunities for other people. But we wanted 5 years of experience in specific areas such as law enforcement, a government attorney or public defender, a federal or state court judge, a local judge. There are the people who are used to some sort of investigative power and understanding. That they've had some supervisory roles in investigating public agencies, that they've managed some complex investigations into fraud, theft, and deception, and that they have the ability to collaborate with law enforcement and judiciary. So we are looking at someone who at least has some ability to understand how do we really investigate meaningfully, right? These things, and how do you do them well? What they have limitations on. So this was an area that we really focused on as well, is we wanted some limitations on what they're able to do. So they are able to hold some outside work if they need to for for-profit corporations, but that requires the Board of Ethics approval. We'll talk about the Board of Ethics in a little bit, but none of that work can be connected to the City of Pontiac at all. They cannot hold other government offices beyond their appointed role during their term. So I think that's an important piece, right? They cannot hold government offices because of conflicts that can exist in that, right? They must adhere to the same conflict of interest rules that are in the charter. They are prohibited from soliciting votes or fundraising for candidates in the city during their tenure, and they're barred from holding elected city office for 2 years post their tenure. So this is even more than some of our other rights, is that we really added in this to really keep that they can't go and then work for the city, right? Because then there's just a lot of different pieces that come into that. So you may be saying, hey, what does that, great, you said this position, what does it mean? What do they do, right? So they can investigate misconduct within city programs and operations. They do have some subpoena power to inspect city agency premises. So if someone locks their door and they need to get, they have the ability to work through the courts on those pieces through the folks. They would be the liaison between cities, elected officers, and public servants. They support the Board of Ethics. So, again, we'll talk about the Board of Ethics in a minute, but it will be a group that's coming together that is citizen-led as well. And one of the things is, great that was one of the things that they worked with the previous charter. But as we looked through the charter, we said, great that there's Board of Ethics, but who's running it, right? If the mayor's running it, or whoever is running it, that doesn't really help, right? Because that person is generally most of the time controlling an agenda, right? Around those different pieces, and that's no shade to anybody, it's just how politics works. And so we said, there has to be someone else who's running this to say, what are the things we're doing, what are we working with the Board of Ethics on? They, of course, can bring pieces together, but I think that's important that we had an office that is really housed with the Board of Ethics. They oversee transition process, so between elected city offices, that is a huge thing. That was a huge thing that we found before, was there was not a transition process, and so things were just thrown about. It was very hard to find out where are things, what's going on. And so there are some people with some personal stories on that with them, but that was critical, right? That we need a good transition process. Our city should not be, thrown to the wind by someone who's getting out of elected office, right? So that's important. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to talk about the fact that I was not talking, but it's really loud. Just to really emphasize, right now, if there's a conflict between the executive branch of the city and the legislative branch, all they're able to do is to go to court. And so if something is minor that could be done by the integrity officer, it makes a huge difference and will potentially save the taxpayers a lot of money in the long run. Because every time you pay a lawyer to go to court, you pay at least $25,000 or so just to get questions answered that could be worked out by a neutral party. And the other part that I don't think Scott mentioned, I think he skipped over it, was a liaison between the elected officers of the city and the public. Right now, if you as a James citizen come with a complaint against any elected official or any department head, it's up to the mayor or the city council to investigate that or do that, but there's no follow-up. And so part of the things that will be in this charter that I think is really beneficial is they have to take that complaint and report back to the mayor and the council and the general public on what happened with that issue.
Scott, go back. And I want to add to it in a sense of it's also, it works on behalf of elected officials too. So people have often come up and they use the broad term of saying community. And it's not necessarily the community as it is maybe 2 or 3 people. It's good to have a person that once a complaint does come up, that you have a person that can identify and then go into an investigation mode to make sure that the complaint is not valid on the elected official. Because you could be out here just doing your job and then somebody comes up and, oh, the community said this, and it could be whatever, deem it to be, we've heard it all over here, right? But it's good to have somebody that can say, as an elected official, that I can go to and say, okay, listen, can you investigate this and kind of clear this up? Because you may want to rerun again, you may need that information, you may, to bring up that clarity. And so that's very important to know that just as an elected official as well, it's good for you to have that protection. Thanks, sir.
So you just have to put your hand up. So, but by all means, I can wait. Let's bring that question back.
A natural question is, you're spelling out something that most citizens will say, why is this required?
Yeah.
You haven't filled the gap in my mind yet of why this is so important versus other things that we can do. So why should I support that?
Okay, so to give you a real-time example, if a situation comes up where there is individuals who don't like the way the contracts are being handed out, they're not receiving contracts. It's a real life example. Folks come to the city, they come to the school district, they want contracts, they don't really have all the qualifications, et cetera, but then they just want to, go, just get yes from board members or council folks and things of that nature. And so if the need be with council and the school district, if you get 4 votes, a person can be removed from their seat. If they're the person that's deemed to be responsible for not giving a contract illegally. Now, there's no recourse in that. Like, there's nothing outside of you going to court, spending your own money, and saying, I didn't do this as an elected official, or the person who's being accused of wanting the illegal contract. Having someone that you can go to and don't have to, do not spend city's money or just residents' money, thousands of dollars fighting something that you can give to somebody and say, can you figure out what this is? Because it's a real-time example. It just happened last night, but if I had somebody that I could go to and say, I don't know who the community is that you're accusing me of. I don't know X, Y, and Z. So could you please give it to this person who is a complete, have their own, their own power. They don't work for the mayor. They don't necessarily work for council. That I can say, or the person who's the bigger contract can say, can you please just look up it and just clear our company's name? Or could you look at it and clear my name as an elected official? So right now, I happen to be just a police officer. So if I retire in January, I don't have the same powers that I had last night. Last night, I can go put in a subpoena. I can go, look at, different technology. I can go do a lot of things within my scope, right? Because that's who I am. But if I'm just an everyday Mr. and Mrs. Pontiac, I don't have that right as an elected official or the vendor doesn't have that right, but that a public integrity officer does. And so I know it's adding another line, which was stated. I spoke with some seniors over the past weekend. One was turning 75 to a great party. And they say, well, why are you adding this in as another layer of finance obligation to a responsibility? And it just dawned on, prior to last night, it just dawned on me to say that you need that other person that is contracted by law, that has, can be held accountable to, if they're falsifying information, like that accountability. Unfortunately, we have those situations that happen here. And so it's just good to have that extra layer of a person that can have a conversation and be able to dispel things quickly, where everything not always going to court. And then on somebody's dock. But that can get a little intense too.
Yeah, to Commissioner Gary's point, I just want to add the fact that 1982's charter worked with the best angels of the city. If everybody was doing what they were supposed to do, the charter that we had was pretty fine. But as you see, we've had people, council people go to jail. We've had mayors under investigation and other things that were there. And the city has never been able to recoup any money from those incidents because they only get prosecuted when it gets to that level. But if you have somebody in the city that's able to kind of nip some of these things in the bud, I just remember with HUD, we had some houses that got demolished that were not supposed to be demolished. And that didn't get figured out for 5 or 6 years in the audit, where if you had somebody that's basically contract compliant all the time, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think that note on contract compliance is also important. We had noted that there's not anyone to do that besides, again, I'll just speak to my own organization. We have a whole compliance department, and we have a budget way less than the city, right? You don't even have that in the city. And so I think what I see is this is the prioritizing conversation. I'd rather have this role than an event person, right? Or be hosting city events every other week. Because I would rather our city, I think at the end of the day, what we saw was 8 years of our city council and our mayor, right? And this is not the first example, but one of many, right? We saw 8 years of a city council and a mayor who fought every single day, almost in court, right? And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into court and to have questions answered. And that is not the way we should be operating as a city. And that has not happened, quite frankly, in most cities, right? But it's the nature of being a strong mayor form of government that there is more conflict in the system, right? And so a lot of those other, and by all means, I'm good with either a city manager or a strong mayor form of government, I don't care. But if you do have a system that's like this, then you have to have a little bit more ability to have conflict mediation, right? I see this as contract compliance, mediation between departments, but I see this mostly as someone who gives the citizens and the residents of the city someone who they can go to when there are things. Because I have heard a lot of different things. I've lived here for many years now, and I hear things all the time that I'm like, well, that doesn't seem right? I just saw someone the other day who was doing things to permitted things at their building, and the city came and shut it down. The city building, the person came and shut it down. Well, who do you go to, right? Yes, luckily we were able to figure it out to the mayor, but there are other things that go way deeper. If you don't have that relationship, your stuff gets shut down, right? Or things happen that you don't have any recourse for. You have your city council, yes, but and then that needs the conflict. So it's an opportunity to really make sure that there's a lot more compliance in the system. It's an opportunity to really make sure that there's a contract compliance person, and it makes sure that it's minimizing the conflict, but it's also, I think, saving money at the end of the day, right? If we get into another situation where we are lucky right now that we have a council and mayor that kind of, they're good, they can figure out their stuff, but if we we have an election next year. If we get back to a situation where our council and our mayor don't get along, I don't want our reputation to go back to what it was, and it quite frankly loses out on things like economic development, it loses out on things like city government and county government partnerships. There are a lot of things that are happening in the city, and we need to have this protection now, so that when things start getting even messier, as growth happens, as other things happen, it doesn't become more conflictual. Again, I wouldn't suggest this for every city under the sun, but I've seen enough in my time here. Listen, I lived in Troy before this, and I said, they didn't really need that, right? And their biggest complaint was electronic billboards. There's a lot more that happens here, and I think we need to keep that in mind, right? So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Will this person, and I think you're going to have to work detail exactly what their duties and responsibilities will be, because, like you said, there's so many things happening here in the city with different people, departments, and things like that. Come to council meeting, and I know Commissioner Riggs will know that people ask, well, what was the answer to it? How was it done? And it was never explained how it was done. And the conflict between council and the mayor, like taking up a stand up, I don't have to. Yes, I do. So I hope when you get ready to talk to the people here and try to get you to explain what this new position will be, what their responsibility will include, and how they can address the residents here in Pontiac. Because we have so many issues that were never ever told to the citizens how it was done, what happened.
Reach that. Thank you.
And then financially, how it could be supported too. I know it probably would start off as general fund, but there are grants for that. But then also we need the same type of integrity officer over at the public library, the same type of integrity officer over at the school district. So it's clearly to do an MOU, share expenses of this particular person. Maybe that would help them add another person to the office. So after certain things are done, I've had an opportunity to be, involved in City Hall, doing that transition, doing that first year, and you see certain things, and when you're left without a transition, you just can't move. That's one thing, but then, you find out that, maybe the finance director ain't doing what the finance director is supposed to be doing. You can't even afford to get an attorney, but you don't even know how much money is even left in the general fund, and then you come and have a structural deficit. It's even more difficult because you don't really know how far that's going to go. So, only the city attorneys can, be able to, do certain things. But I think it's very important that, like you said, spell out what this person does, how they do it. I see it as a role of, just having accountability across the board. So, thank you.
I will keep us moving just so we can I know y'all got places to be, I'm sure, but independence, and I think that goes back into some of the independence, retaliation clauses, confidentiality. One of the things I wanted to know that I think is also important as we move into this is that while it approaches independently and all of that, we also know that people also make complaints or other things like that may not be true at all, right? And so we wanted to add in some immunity pieces on there and some confidentiality or retaliation type pieces that people can't retaliate against this person, right? But there's some clauses in there on that, but they also can't. But then they also have, let's say I was investigated for something, right? Which hopefully I never am. Let's say I was investigated for something. I have to be just like in the state of the law, right? Or let's say journalism in some way, right? You got to go and make sure that person either responds, and you got to make sure to have that conversation. You got to make sure that they're included in any report, so that it's not just something going out that has no information. Like you have to really make sure that there's some pieces in there that are focused on that. And so I think that was important. And also that investigative files are kept confidential. So while the broad reporting is there, they also keep that confidentiality within the pieces. Not everyone's name should be blasted out into the world, right? Just, we don't want to create more problems there. So I think there's some pieces on that. Funding, again, this funding comes through a separate budget. The compensation is determined by the local officers' compensation committee. City council is required to allocate annual funding. We noted the purchasing department as, a substitute on that, and that it ensures their effective operation, right? We wanted to make sure that they didn't get hamstrung just because people don't like them, right? Council could just pass a $0 budget, and that wouldn't be good either. And then again, that reporting and transparency piece, their regular reporting to the Board of Ethics, the mayor, city council, their reports are publicly accessible, noting the confidentiality clauses. They're authorized to hire consultative services for conflicts of interest that they need. They have free report consultation to those affected parties for critical pieces, for critical reports, and making sure again that there's some protection for our folks and measures to ensure independence, transparency, and accountability. So that is the Office of Public Integrity. what I, again, think is good here is that it also works with the Board of Ethics. And so what we had added in here, again, was the Board of Ethics. Well, this was something that was added in the 2012 charter. What we added in here was, again, that will have 5 members, 2 members appointed by City Council, 2 members appointed by the mayor, and then 1 member appointed by the Election Commission with 4/5 vote. The selection involved applications, reviews, and interviews. So again, this is that group that coincides a lot with the ethics pieces here. Members there must be city residents. They must serve 5-year terms. Their term limits, they can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. For their eligibility, there are no current officials, race candidates, or elected office holders. So again, creating that barrier so that there's not conflicts there. And then removal for cause after investigative board votes, conflicts of interest. So we added a lot of provisions that really focus on making sure that, again, this board really does act independent and can do what they need to do without conflict. There's just some rules and procedures on here. Again, of course, they're governed by the Michigan Open Meetings Act. They have autonomy to establish the rules. Their initial meeting will elect a board chair. Their operation is supported again by the Office of Public Integrity. Powers and duties, so collaborates with the Office of Public Integrity for annual report preparation, receives and addresses complaints, facilitates ethical standards trainings for city officials, so ensuring that all of our officials should be, and employees, quite frankly, should be getting ethics training every year. And then they actually provide direct supervision to our public integrity officer, and I think that's something that's important to note, right? Is that as an independent body, they still need to be checked, and so the Office of Public Integrity actually generally reports to the Board of Ethics, which is why it's important to have those two together. The city will again annually appropriate sufficient funds for that, we go through that office, and will be in accordance to enable their duties.
I agree with this. It is a damning remedy for a city. If you're outside and you're flying in here and looking at our city, and the extensive language that you have here for this, it's a damning thing. You know what I'm trying to say, that we need to have this in Pontiac. I mean, no other city would do it. And you go on and on and on. There's so many other things to make our city better that we now see that we need to do this. So I can live with it, but it is a damning remedy, and I hope that it will serve, as you're saying, it will. The jury will be out whether it will do what you're saying.
Certainly.
You know what I mean? Just in closing my comment, I've been a member city. I moved here in '97. I've always been amazed that citizens of Pontiac come to the city council and talk all the time, and yet the school board is the school is so much more important for our city than in my point of view. We're going to be a world-class school, and very few go to the school, but everybody comes to the city of Steve. That's the worst thing that I see. How do we remedy that? That is, so whatever you do, good luck.
Appreciate that, Rick.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that the city of Detroit has similar offices. This is not just a unique situation to Pontiac with the public integrity officers. So I think we took, and I want to give credit to Scott and others, took a lot of due diligence to kind of craft the best policy based on many different municipalities in order to create what we have in our charter.
And just to add to really add to that, they may not call it a public integrity officer, but they do call it a liaison officer. And that's a person who's certified through the prosecutor's office or through that city's police department, who's the liaison between the municipality, municipality and the residents. And so that person pretty much is what you described as a public integrity officer, but because of the name of it, like you said, Mr. David, they don't call it that, they just call it a liaison officer. But that person pretty much is funded by the city, and they do these small investigations, so they do say, in the smaller communities, around here have that individual and have used them and worked out well. But I get your point to the naming of it. But at some point, hopefully, we don't have to use them as much as that we should, thought we may need them. And then some of those other attributes of whether them being communicative people, talking to the residents, going out just, filtering questions and so forth will be more of their job than just, investigating small claims or large ones. So that's my hope desire.
And Scott, and just to add to that, in other organizations, they are called also compliance officers. And anytime that you have funds coming in to any organization, whether it's a profit or nonprofit, someone needs to be in compliance. Someone needs to be looking out and making sure that things are going the way that it should be going. And that's what's needed. And if other organizations and other cities don't have this, then shame on them.
They have the compliance piece, but we don't even have that necessarily worked right. So I get your point. I appreciate you for trusting the process on that one a little bit. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. So our next piece that we wanted to highlight is really creating balance between government branches. So, of course, the executive, again, this goes back to our form of government. We know that people like the form of government that we have, so we wanted to make sure that there was some connection there, right, with balance. That's most important. And so, the legislative branch structure and requirements. So we did council membership. We moved from 7 districts to 6 districts with 1 at-large seat. I know that the previous charter had all districts, 7 districts. The 2012 charter had 2 at-large and 5 districts. We tried to strike a balance, and the reason for that wasn't because we said, "Oh, district suck" or whatever. We wanted to give the residents, right, someone else who they can also touch with. I live in District 2, for example. I had a council member pass away like 13 times. Every single person was there, but they were also not last communicative. What?
Yeah, the last two.
Yeah, the last 2. Not Brett, sorry. But our council person, before, I swear to you, I tried to contact 1 million times and they did not respond, right? There needs to be additional opportunities for our residents to have the representation that they need. And so having an at-large seat with someone allows them additional representation. And so that was our goal with that position, right? Was to create that and make sure that residents have pieces there, get issues taken care of, they have a little bit more representation, and that was the goal.
And I wanted to add to that because one of the conversations about that at-large seat is it gives when you're working in community policing or you're working in just an overall trying to get something done in the community, you can't track down every council person. It's good to have that one person in that particular meeting that can answer for an at-large question that you plan on doing with a particular city. One of the previous mayors, not with the mayor, elected official, was basically brought up the point of saying, well, this person could be, try to be combative with the mayor because they're running at the same pace as the other person. I say, well, the difference is that the mayor has the opportunity to run the city. This at-large person, he has to, or she has to be responsible for every other district as well. And just knowing what that city council person is doing in that individual district, it's not like you just sit back and saying, y'all come to me and tell me all your problems or tell me what the solution is. No, you have to be actively involved and say, okay, District 1, what do you have? District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, and then turn around and be able to articulate that in such a way where when your report comes out, so you're not even stepping on their toes about things that you're going to have specific things that you're going to be able to work on. So for me as a community liaison who's working all 7 districts, they all act as at-large districts anyway at times when it comes to certain things that come up in an individual community, because the community is just saying, what is council overall? And then it's good for council to be able to go to that one person and say, okay, this overall arching conversation is one thing. I just use I example the battery spot in District 6, the one that so that was a very long I wouldn't say long and drawn out, but if you had somebody that had large person, District 6 could have started working on other things, and then that at large person could have stepped in and said, okay, now I'm going to be able to ask some questions and be able to, filter questions from residents. And District 6 council person can say, okay, what other things are you? They had a skate park going on at the time. He had like 3 different things going on in his district. And then when he started wanting to add that plant in there, that kind of took away some of the time from the others. He could have passed that on to his teammate. So it works 2 ways. So that's why I was one of the biggest opponents and supporters of that at large space.
Yes. I will also note that we added in some provisions to this current transition period, knowing that, we have elections coming. We added in some provisions to kind of protect, make sure that our current council people are taken care of in their current seats for now, right? So we kind of added in some pieces just to make sure that there were some, that they didn't come out to just to take them back. Go ahead, Rick.
I'm very supportive of what you're doing. As a resident of District 1, it is the craziest district in the whole world. When I was head of White House, that was part of District 1. I feel no relationship to District 1. And frankly, I live in the historic district. I don't feel anything, and I don't think the downtown people do either.
Right.
So I don't know how you solve that problem. That's a big issue of the geographic area of District 1. At one time, Franklin was part of District 2.
Yes.
Based on the census. But it's just so crazy how it is. I wish you well as you try to figure it out.
Luckily, the council figured that one out, so. But I agree, yeah, it's an interesting part. Did you have a comment? Yeah.
The last time that I remember when they tried to pass this charter, that was a big area because people thought they were going to lose their representative.
Right.
You're going to have to then explain this down to a letter, I guess I have to say. And if you're throwing there a person that's going to be paid full-time, part-time, how it's going to reflect. Because like you said, District 1 is huge.
Right.
And the problems in District 1 are huge. Right? So you're going to really have to explain this to everyone. Definitely you better get into this and be able to explain it so that everyone can understand it clearly. Don't do anything because somebody's going to challenge you on that because it looks like they're going to be losing. That's the way they're going to see it. So please be ready, Commissioner, to explain this to everybody. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Span. When you say explain, for example, what would you like to be explained to make this make sense to the people that you're considering that would have a question?
We don't have to put y'all on the spot, but if you have something, please.
Can I speak on this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The whole notion of having at-large representation is designed to give the voter more representation. Now, originally we had it so that we had like 5 and 2 at large, right? So now, in actuality, what that does is that gives the person his district and 2 at large districts as representatives that he can call on for whatever the issue is he's concerned about. So the compromise on this iteration was that we had 1 at large and then we had 6 districts. So basically, you had your district representation, and if you're not finding satisfaction with that, maybe you can find more satisfaction having that at-large person, that person who's calls. So basically, you have 2 people that are representative of what you desire can. So that was the whole idea behind the 5 and 2, and now the 6 and 1. I think what my colleague is saying is change is so difficult.
Yes.
There's 5 or 6 of us in the room here. And if we're voting on this in a month or so, this has no chance of passing, or slim chance of passing, because so few people know about it. And I wanted to be successful as I wanted the previous one to be successful. It was the same thing. You all did a wonderful job of organizing, but we're doing a terrible job of PR, leading up to the vote. And you don't have enough time to be successful. That's my concern. As you say, change, everyone has trouble with change. You know, wherever that is. And so that's my only concern.
We got another one.
And the reason why I asked that is because this board is of 9. We speak to a lot of community people, but as you're pointing out, and in order to make this work, slim chance, big chance, little chance, we need to know, because we have so little time, what do you think, or what do y'all think, as this 5 needs to be done, far as communicating this too? Because, like, again, you said, this is a big task, but I just would like to know, and I'm pretty sure the board, because we came collectively together, made these changes that we thought the community was saying. So if it needs to be communicated better, in what aspect do you think we need to get that out? If you know of it.
Yes.
If you don't worry about it. I'm just saying because I would like to make sure we're at least trying to get on that path instead of just beating what we think is right.
If I may, I guess my question in terms of our current discussion of this topic, how was it when it was presented to you for the first time now? How do you feel about it after we had discussed it? Personally, I would say.
Okay, I'm trying to run in my mind where I see this move from 7 districts to 6 districts with 1 at-large seat. That 1 at-large seat, what would be their responsibility to the 6, or to someone saying that I'm not represented out of the 7? Explain to them, what is that 1 at-large person going to be doing? What is their responsibility? Are they going to be able to vote once, twice, or are they going to be able to go to the district, the representative in district, district 3 or 4, and say, you weren't at the meeting. I'm representing at large everybody. I'm going to be able to speak to that particular position and vote on it, or just explain what that at large means, because see, that at large means, what are you doing? I mean, just being simple. What is that at large person doing? Are they going to be paid to do this? Are they the full-time person? It's going to take a lot of explanation to individuals about what this at large position really means. What is the definition of that?
And would you say the title itself being called at large kind of sets you back a little bit with some concerns just strictly on that title itself? Okay.
That's, I think somebody's going to ask, just like I'm just a person, what does that large mean to someone? Maybe the wording is wrong, the title is wrong, but you're going to have to explain to the city community and city and council meeting whenever something comes up. They target that one. How come you didn't know about it? How come, if somebody out of another district is talking about it, we shouldn't be, because some people say stay in your own lane. Why are you jumping over here to what's going on in my particular district? Why?
Okay, before you jump in, Mr. David,
The other thing, tell the people how Pontiac has changed since 1982.
Yes.
Right. And I wasn't here in 82. What was our population in 82, for example? Other things like that. you know what the population was in 82?
Yeah, we had almost 100,000 people.
100,000.
I was not born, Rick David.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pontiac has changed tremendously.
You gotta kind of
Yeah.
bring people along.
So I think that's part of it. We do want to get to some of the other things in the charter, but just as far as the at-large piece, there has been districts that are not well represented. District 1 is a very visible district. A lot of people know where their lines is, but if you ask the majority of Pontiac citizens, they don't know what district they're in. They call whatever council person is visible. If you have Kermit's number and you can call Kermit, that's what you're going to do. You're going to call Kermit Williams. We've always had at-large city council people. We just didn't give them a title, and they just didn't know it. And that's what we've been dealing with for the longest period of time. Now this designates a person, so you'll have 2 people on your ballot when you vote next year, if the charter passes. So you'll have your district person, let's say your District 4, you'll have your District 4 person, and then you'll have an at-large person. So now you've got 2 representatives that you could potentially recall if things go bad, but you'll also have 2 representatives if things go good, or if a council person gets sick. Who picks up those calls? Right now, those just flow to other district people who have their own district. If you have an at-large person, by default, you have that phone number already where you can call them and they're supposed to be responsive to your issue. So at-large gives more coverage than less coverage. We got to remember that all 7 council people right now are part-time. Many of them have 3 or 4 jobs. My council person, who happens to be the council president, has, I believe, 2.5 jobs. I think he's doing a great job, but his interest is secondarily to Pontiac folks after you have your day job. That's just human nature. You're going to do the job that pays you. And so having a full-time person as the council president gives the citizens the opportunity from 9 to 5 to have somebody on the clock doing the business of the city. Right now, we just had a Lancaster meeting in this very room 2 weeks ago. Pastor Parker has been at all of the meetings that they have, but he has to take off his day job just to come to those meetings. There's nobody in the city to do that. And then on the opposite side, you have a full administration with staff that's able to do these things between 9 to 5 and have a full-time mayor. The mayor is an at-large position, right? And everybody from the city gives them questions, concerns, or things they need to do. Those mayor can't be in every place. But we don't have that same option in any shape, form, or fashion on the council at this current time with the 1982 charter.
Chair, my question would be then, is there any way, or who, at this point, because it's in the charter, right? Who sets the definition? Because how I explain it as I know it to operate just by going to every council meeting or in every district, being familiar with every district. So who sets the definition to what that person does? Because I think, and you say that's a very good question of just, if we could just, who sets the definition of or terms to what that person does, then we can begin to explain that.
May I mention another thing? I was planning to leave at 8 o'clock. You probably go on to 10 o'clock, your next job. I mean, you may not, but you may, you know what I'm trying to say. You know, it's going to take longer than you had planned. That was my point.
Okay.
And so how do you, between now and the election, how do you really plan for this? And we want to help you be successful on it. I'm going to go back to one other topic, the assessment of taxes. You only talk about property tax. There's also the 1% or whatever that people pay who don't live in Pontiac. Did you look at whatever that is? Did you look at that? And we're one of the only cities, most cities, balance their budget with property taxes being the number one thing. And we are the ones that have the 1% or 2% that balance it. And people need to understand that more. Is it effective? And I don't.
I'm just going to give it to you very briefly. That's state statute cities that are over 50,000, with certain levels are able to collect income tax. If you live in the city of Pontiac and work in the city of Pontiac, you pay 1%. If you work in the city of Pontiac but live elsewhere, you pay 0.5%. If you lived in the city of Detroit, you would pay 2%. If you worked in the city of Detroit but lived somewhere else, you would pay 1%. Only certain cities over 50,000 population are able to do that. So that's why you don't see it in Auburn Hills or other places where there's lower than that. And that's not something that you can mandate with the charter as far as income tax. That is a state law. So that we could not do anything with that in the charter.
Okay, but I thought there should be some reference to it at least, because it's important for a lot of people. Yeah, you know. So,
Most people don't even know that. They don't have a clue, and what you say is very true. A couple people might know, but most people come in and say, I'm trying to tell you as a commission, y'all got to clear some of this stuff up. Because people come to meetings, they don't have a clue about what it is or how it's done, and then they see it, and they're already talking about, I don't like it. They haven't even been here to find out what it's about. You have to do this, but that it's only down for August. August is only a few weeks away. Nobody, you don't see anybody coming in here and they talk about what's the charge about? Because the last time it was sabotaged by people who not coming to find out exactly what's going on, and they were turned against it before they even read it. They just went by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a big problem again, passing this. Your explanation I can understand, but there are some people you gotta be so clear. It's almost the water. It's just completely clear. They're not going to understand a word that you're saying because if somebody's already told me it's not good. Okay, I'm not voting for it. I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate. Listen to the way I am. You don't get this straight in part. This is a little unique town. Y'all know that. If you don't come with some specifics, somebody will blow it up when they come to council meeting or come here. And you only got a few weeks before the August primary. And everybody thought this was going to be in November, not August, and a little bit more time, but it's not. So when you come to this and you're talking pay a full-time person, even if the council president, I don't care who it is, but it's got to be explained. They are not going to understand how we lose or how we gain, and what Commissioner Williams was saying. I might understand it, but somebody sitting next to me gonna tell me something. What is this? Because they didn't have to. I'm just being real. If you want to get something passed in Pontiac, you have better make sure the little person as well as the big person understand exactly what you're saying. Because some people have already sabotaged it already.
Absolutely.
So I can't make it more clear.
So I'm gonna go back to my question. So the definition of the at-large district, and I'm just saying, can we just start defining that when we have the conversation, or is that something that's defined once that position is created?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Hill.
Yeah.
But you know, as an elected official, that just because you have the title of elected official does not necessarily make all of them created equal, right?
Correct.
So the job description for that person at large is they're elected by the general at large public. That's the definition. So that depending on who takes that seat is going to determine how useful, how effective, and how helpful they are. I get what you're saying. We should say they should do X, Y, and Z, but that's not what's in the charter or even in the mandate of a city council person. We have city council people that do a phenomenal job, who show up for the residents, make good legislation and ordinance. And then we have city council people that never read their packet, don't show up to meetings consistently, don't see anybody in their neighborhoods, and they're still representative government.
And that's I think I just wanted to see, and that's, I mean, he gave me the answer that I needed. So, I mean, just as I'm speaking to it as a commissioner, what I would like that person to be. Yeah, because you could describe it as how you would like that person to be, because that's how I've been described, as well as the public integrity office. These are the top three things: the at-large district, the definition of the full-time person, and the public integrity office is what I've been getting over the last since we started. So that's, you answered it for me. I'm gonna continue to have it going because I get positive feedback from that. But you know, we'll cross that other bridge of what they should be doing once the president.
Yeah, and I think we can have some additional conversation on it. I do want to move this.
Just one thing. Thank you, Ms. Pam.
Yeah.
Answering my question.
Thank you.
And Rick.
I think one thing that I'll just jump up a little bit on, I wanted to just highlight real quick is all y'all are bringing up amazing points. And what I wanted to really highlight real quick is one area that we added in here was state law mandates, right? This commission can only be elected for a certain period of time, all that stuff. So we know, right, that y'all are going to say, oh God, I might not like that at all. Or, oh, this is, we may find that if this passes, we have the opportunity to change things, right? Like, that's what I want to highlight. This is there. And this is one thing that I wanted to make sure that we added in. But what has happened is there's no one looking at this. Like, we spent so much time looking at this and going, oh, I got it. Like, but no one is looking at this on a regular basis. And so one thing that we added in here was a charter review board. And this is an informal board, not a formal charter commission, but an informal board that will get together immediately, and we require that it gets together immediately after we adopt this charter. And what they can do, they're a year-long group that will get together, and their goal is to recommend any additional changes that we might not have gotten to the city council. Because the only way to get anything else changed in a charter is for city council to recommend it to the voters. And so we wanted there to be an ongoing conversation on this, knowing that we ended up getting, again, a year cut off of our time, and that really was our community engagement time that we had to cut off. We had to get the charter in by January to the Attorney General. So we were cut off quite a bit, and that is unfortunate. We know that. And so this was something that we added to make sure that this conversation happens, because I know that there may be things that, and so my hope is that yes, change is hard. And I know that. I know that people hate change. But my hope is that at some level, this is something that I want to keep lifting up, that like there's opportunities for you to change this, and this is your next piece to do that, is making sure that this group gets together, and this allows an automatic piece for it to come together and recommend changes to the city council.
So I love that, Scott. Can you jump ahead to the big piece on enhancing resident voice and power? I think a lot of people are getting hung up on the form of government, but we put a lot of cool things in this charter to make it more people-friendly. And that's not the big highlight because people just are used to city council. But if you can go through that, Scott, I think that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's something as well.
I was just wanting to say, thank you for bringing up the charter revision board. And, I would hope that, the community has a mindset like Rick to have the opportunity for this to pass, to trial the new revisions that we made. But there's always that opportunity to come back and review it and say, well, maybe that idea wasn't that good. Let's go ahead and remove it in the new revision. But we've never had that opportunity since 1982 for us to even try new things. So kudos to Rick for wanting to see the change happen, whether it's good or bad. But to ensure your mindset, Rick, there's always an opportunity to remove the things that did not work.
They may say, hey, I don't want a full-time city council person, or whatever, right? That's okay.
I agree with Rick because what you're speaking to, if this committee after this is passed and you recommend having a subcommittee later on, will they have the power to be able to, like he's asking, if it's not needed or we need to replace with something else, will they have the power to be able to do that?
If council
if you see something that we never talked about, really extensive, be able to change it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is the goal. They have to recommend that. It is, and this formalizes that structure. That's what I like about it, right? Is that you can, at any time, city council could put something up on a ballot, but they don't. So this formalizes that they have to give the council a report. And then, unfortunately, on some level, it's now on the citizens after that. But if there's enough people who want something changed, like, we got a lot of fighters in this city. So that is on the council to then take that report and do that. So that's the one piece, right? It relies on our council people. But that's, I think, what's so nice about this is that we knew that we didn't get everything, or we knew that you know, just like Rick, you said, it's like, I don't necessarily love this provision, but I don't hate it, right? Like, I'd love to see it play out and whatever, like, I'm not gonna hold it up. And that's what we're hoping is that people see that and then see that there's some opportunities to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, over the next month, it's a PR.
Yes.
It's a PR thing, all, you know, and so I thought you know, you need to tell me, for example, how many hours you all spend on this.
Yeah.
The citizens need to know that it was just not willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And so you can, what other outside influences did you gain coming up with what you want to do and you recommend? So you got to do a PR. You got to lay the groundwork before you tell them what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Lay the groundwork. That would have been helpful tonight. That you spent 600 hours on this over 2 years, and you did this and this and this. You got it. It's a PR thing, and it's a month. You can't delay it until November. Is that what you're telling me?
Unfortunately not. We are cut off in August. So us as a group are cut off in August.
And the state looking at it, do they make any changes or do they just give their blessing?
They've made a couple changes, yeah. So they
citizens need to know that an outside group looking at it, that look at a lot of cities, and it met must be done.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah, those are great suggestions. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. So I'll cover this resident voice piece real quick. One of the things that we added in was increasing our candidate nomination requirements for signatures. So right now it was some low amount. Like you can get on and run for city council and mayor with like 2 people basically giving you a signature. That's crazy, right? Like that. So we really wanted to make sure that citizens were getting people that they wanted. So we increased the numbers of interest run for office. Council at large has to get 250 to 400 signatures, and same with the mayor, 250 to 400. And then council districts have to get at least 100 to 150 signatures. So we increased it again, you know, to a level that we thought was realistic for those areas. And so that's one piece that we worked on. Oh, we're gonna put someone up. Okay, petitions and referendums. We also made it so that to file a petition, you must collect signatures from not less than 10% of the registered electors in the preceding presidential election. So there was a lot of, you know, we had seen quite a few things where people were putting things on with barely any people, or, you know, it was based on, I think, the last city election, which is like, I don't know, you can get a referendum on there for like 10 people based on those calculations. So we wanted to increase that requirement to really make sure that the citizens were being talked to in that. We created a full boards and commission section, and we really highlighted on here. So before there were a couple of commissions that were outlined or boards that were outlined. We created a full section of this, and we started with the public engagement philosophy. That is, I think, what we wanted in all of this charter was that public engagement is not just an afterthought; it is crucial for effective government, right? And so we wanted to emphasize continued interaction over sporadic events. So we wanted to. We required things like that. You'll see in like Detroit, like the mayor has to do a community engagement session every quarter, like those types of things that we really needed, that we really thought were important. We wanted advocates for diverse. Thank you. It advocates for diverse engagement channels, both in person and online. It encourages community feedback in the decision-making process and promotes the collaboration of entities and individuals for enhanced public engagement. That's the philosophy of it. The establishment and purpose, again, we run into those boards and commissions to provide guidance in specific governance areas. They're established through ordinance and aligned with charter provisions. They cover areas like planning, arts, historical matters, parks and recreation. So it allows, again, what we wanted was not to define everything, but we wanted to really make sure that there were pieces in here on this end. That members typically serve voluntarily, so there's some opportunities for reimbursement. Existing entities that exist and continue to move. The composition of those is set by city council ordinance, but appointments are actually made by the mayor and city council, so that was something that we wanted to highlight as well. Currently, all appointments for boards and commissions are made through the mayor, and so we wanted to make sure that there was some opportunity for city council to be engaged in that. That's part of that balance, but also part of increased community, because we think that people who are in the neighborhoods or city council people have different relationships as well as people who can be on these, and we wanted to diversify who are on our boards and committees. And then there's a transparent process promoting that diversity, inclusivity, and community representation, right? And then at least 51% of those members are appointed by the mayor. That is something that we, was compromised there that we worked on. Terms are set at 4 years for those. They're staggered. Appointment eligibility typically requires city residency, which is important. Sorry. And then boarding commissions, what are they kind of doing, right? They have capacity to conduct studies, research, and hearings. They make some policy recommendations to city council. We've all seen our boards and commissions work, right? We have plenty of them, but we wanted to really formalize this. They're serving in an advisory capacity that they can be altered and dissolved based on the importance pieces. That they must hold regular meetings open to the public. Right now, there are some commissions that are not really talked about at all. So we wanted to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on, right? Their operational aspects like form and voting procedures are determined. They're transparent. There's public access to those meetings and documents. They're reported and televised on public access channels. That was, I think, the biggest piece. We really added a lot more on how the public is able to access information. And that was super critical that we worked through on most of these pieces, especially for your board and commissions where most of that work is done. Go ahead. Yes, that is essentially. If you go slide 43, it's more near the end. It's under the enhancing resident voice section. Sorry, I should have put a page on those slides. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Make meetings and proceed.
Yep. You'll see some things like powers and responsibilities, terms of office. Sorry for losing it for a minute.
Do you have it up on the?
It's up here, yeah. So I think those were important provisions that we wanted to make sure because they are required to submit quarterly reports to City Council. So right now they don't have to do anything. So we wanted to make sure that those boards and commissions were, again, that our citizens were able to see what's going on in these boards and commissions. That's where most of the work is. That's where a lot of work happens, right? People need to know it, right? So they want to detail the activities, findings, and recommendations. They want them accessible. That's the kind of stuff that, again, it goes back to some of that transparency, but it also goes back into making sure that our citizens are informed. We did add a youth commission specifically, and so we kept this a little bit broader and said that they may establish a youth commission by ordinance for individuals 13 to 18 years old at the time of appointment. We wanted to have an opportunity to kind of force the city in some ways to have some youth engagement. To really start thinking about our next leaders in the city, bring people around, get them involved, really understand city government in different ways. I talked about the charter review board, so I won't go through that extensively. That was one thing that was in that section as well.
I think you can go to the 4 goals.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll cover the 4 goals. And again, we highlighted this quite a bit, but I really wanted to highlight this for the rest of this group, right? Is our 4 goals as we look at this charter, especially under the time frame that we had, was 1, let's make sure that the city charter matches what our current operations are. We are out of compliance with our current city charter. We don't own a city hospital. We do not have an established, right? There are so many things that we are not operating in compliance with. And so how do you run a city when you're not in compliance, right? That's a weird thing that we've just been doing for quite a few years now. And so at the base level, just make sure that we're operating in that piece. Our other goal was developing that balance and equal power between the branches of government, which makes sure that the citizens have both opportunities to move that together, that there is equal power for both of those branches, right? That both the city council and the mayor have the opportunity to have the same rights and responsibilities as they move forward, and the residents are taken care of. And that really is the reason why we focused on that. That creation of the ethics and transparency rules, again, at least the very first thing that I would know is that there is not any in our current charter. There are not any ethics requirements in our current charter, and that leaves so much open, right? That leaves so much opportunity, and we've seen it in every administration. It doesn't even matter if you talk about the last. We've seen it in every administration since 1982. We've seen something happen. We've seen something with city council, something with the mayor. We've had weird conversations after each person going, what happened here? And so we have to do something. I think that's the most piece, like out of anything, that ethics piece is so important because it leaves it to the whims of people who are in elected office to act responsibly. And I think that is the biggest difference. I think somebody said it earlier was the current charter that we have anticipates that everyone is operating like angels. Like, oh, I would never do something wrong. And so there's no stopgaps, there's no requirements, there's no transparency. And so what this charter does is act as if people might might be unethical, right? That they might have personal interests in things. And that is so critical to make sure that doesn't happen. Because my goodness, I do not want our money to be wasted. I do not want our residents to not be taken care of, and that's so important, I think, there. And then again, I think that last piece, which is enhancing resident voice and power. We wanted to give the residents continued power in this charter. We wanted additional voice. We wanted different opportunities we could be engaged, and that is our final piece there.
All right, let's give it up for Scott Stewart. So next step, right, what actually happens? August 6th, people will vote on the charter. If the charter passes, it will go to the county board of the state to be certified. The council and the mayor serving currently will finish out their 4-year terms. I know a lot of people are asking the question, if the charter passes, will that remove what we currently have? We won't have what?
Okay,
all right. And then the next thing is, if there are provisions that you don't like in the charter review board is there to ensure you can further update it. So now we'll open it up for public comments or questions before I turn it over to my colleagues. But I do want to say this. This was like 9 people making a pizza. We all had different ideas and different visions on where the city should go. But over 3 years, we came to some consensus, and this is the charter that it came up with. It is not a perfect charter by any means, but it is 1,000% better than what we currently have. One of the things is, and I don't know if Scott hit this, but all of the things in 1982 happened before there were emails, before there was websites and other things, and it brings the charter up to date. And so that is one of the crucial features. We didn't move a whole lot of stuff, and so I'll leave it there. But if anybody has public comments, now's the time.
You don't have to have any, but you can.
I said, giving you my questions that I wanted you to know, and how some of the citizens, because sitting with some of the citizens will be around and they're going to ask certain questions. I want it to pass. We need to be updated. Change is going to come. I tell people all the time, I don't care if I, Connie, she's not going to look at Connie when I've been here all my life. It's not going to look. Change has to come. This has to be updated to reflect what is happening in our city right now. There is no doubt about that. That's the only thing I'm saying. I'm hoping that the explanation that you give to the people, the citizens of Pontiac, they will listen, to the naysayers will listen, and know that we cannot stay back there. We have got to go this way. So I'm hoping that it passes. That's why I came, so I can say that I've been here, I heard, and tell me why you weren't there to ask this question.
Reach that.
All right, anybody else with public comments? Okay, any reports from our subcommittee?
On behalf of President Killian, I would like to report on the outreach subcommittee. We worked on a mailer, as discussed earlier in this conversation, with the clerk's office, in which it gives a very detailed, highlighted version of the presentation that was presented here today. That mailer will be sent out to the entire community, in which we're hoping that is going to be the spark for people to inquire, for people just to gain more information about the charter. We will have there is access to the Red Line Charter, as Commissioner Stewart explained. And other than that, so now that we got that mailer out, we are also going to be printing copies of that same mailer to have it passed out in meetings like this. So, anything else to be add about the outreach committee?
Well, we did discuss ways that we could reach the community, and we're still on that. And we do know that there are many individuals in the community said that food definitely helps. So we have considered ice cream social at these meetings, taking ice cream socials to that. But of course, we've got to look at our budget in regards to that. We also know that the music concerts are in the park. And what we're hoping is that we would be allowed to spend at least 10 minutes of there just trying to explain what the charter is all about. So we are planning now with different, all districts, 7 districts, and we've added on a few more, and that was the
CDCs.
CDC
District meetings and neighborhood associations.
and Spanish community. The
Not familiar?
thank you.
Central Cultural Not familiar?
Yes.
Before we close out the outreach subcommittee, I would like to plan our next outreach subcommittee meeting.
Afterwards.
Okay,
So I'll accept.
I'll yield.
I don't know what that noise keeps being. So it's legal thing on it's making me nervous. But thank you, outreach committee. So again, there'll be a mailer in all of the mailboxes. As a general committee, Meals on Wheels has invited us this Saturday. If anybody would like to speak about the charter at their Blues downtown. So that's going on all day, I believe, almost on Saturday. So I need the commissioners want to talk to people about the charter. That will be appropriate time to do so. Now I'm going to close it for closing comments from commissioners. I'm going to start with Ms. Granderson.
She's not.
I just would like to let the citizens know that your AB ballots went out to the post office today. So you should be getting them in the mail over the weekend. Look out for them. Anyone who wants an absentee ballot, all you have to do is call the clerk's office, 248-758-3200. Request a application, fill that out, send it back in to us, and we will mail you out an absentee ballot. Also, early voting is at the Pontiac Library, and that starts July 27th. If you have any questions about that, call the city clerk office, 248-758-3200. Good night.
And I want to personally thank Ms. Granderson for staying with us all these 3 years. No, we've been
know with a lot.
Yeah.
We worked on it for 2.
It's been 3 years. All right, Commissioner Payne.
Good evening. I would just like to thank, first of all, residents for being here. Thank you so very much. And we're hoping for more, but next time I'm sure that there will be. And also the commissioners, thank you for all your hard work. This was a challenge, and we made it through it. And as Rick was saying, change. And as you were saying, change. It is very difficult to make change. Like, this is a document that I think that is one of the best documents that I have seen as far as the charter is concerned. What really happens is that you have to do the work. And everything in here is a guide to get to that point, to do the work, to make sure that our city runs better and that the residents are also involved in everything that goes on within the city, because we are the city. So I'm hoping that this charter does pass, because I really feel that it will bring about a prosperous future for the city. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Turner. Make sure people speak.
Spitting things around in my head there, I'm trying to figure out what it was I could say. You know, these commissioners, speak to the fact that we've spent a couple of years doing this. This is twice that I've done it. And the first time we did pass, and at this time I'm hopeful that it will pass. And I think the main thing that I want to say here is that even though there's a distinction between the first one that I worked on and this one, it's still a process that a group of people go through in order to come together with an idea that they think is best for our city. This isn't done for individual needs or gratification. It's done for the benefit of the city. And there is within the constructs of how we do things, the ability to amend things in the charter if something turns out it's not quite what we thought it was. But, so 2 sessions of going through this, maybe that adds up to 6 years, I don't know. It's a lot of time. And sometimes I have to keep myself from nodding off. But I think that as a point for the community to understand, it's a process of struggling through the issues of our city, trying to create a document that best reflects what we think is best in terms of a guideline for how we run things in our city. Obviously, times change, and the document has to be able to reflect that flexibility, able to move forward into the future. So I think that it's a good document. I think that, nobody pays a whole lot of attention to it anyway. But it's there if you need it in terms of recognizing our Bible, our book of rules, and fall back on it in terms of how we're going to conduct ourselves in the city. It's a good piece of paper to have. So that's how I feel about it.
All right. Commissioner Burris.
Just like to thank everyone that came out, especially you, ma'am, for a lot of your input. It's really appreciated. What's it? It's Gloria, yes. Thank you for being here with your input. Like that was stated earlier, we've been doing this for over 2 years. We, out of the kindness of our hearts, we didn't always agree on everything. We would stay late nights, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes trying to get this done. I'm glad we got it done. We did do some upgrades, which is what we needed. So the City of Pontiac, you will be hearing from us. Like, you will be hearing from us. All that we ask is that you listen and want to get engaged. Like, you can't shoot something down if you don't know anything about it. And that point was made earlier. Like, we will not vote on something just because somebody else said something. So you will hear from us, the commissioners. We will be out in the community. We will be passing out literature. We will be having conversations with the citizens, just so we can get this passed and our hard work don't go in vain. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Ybarra.
Thank you all for today's meeting. Great presentation, Commissioner Stewart. Great work, everybody on the commission. Today I do appreciate the citizens that spoke and provided their opinion. And I also appreciate them having an open mind. There have been discussions with citizens who have explained that they are stern on not voting for the charter. Um, you know, it, I don't think we would ever create the most perfect charter for everybody to agree on. And I'm hoping that once we educate the people, that there will be able to make changes in this proposed charter revision after it's passed. There will be opportunities for people to be heard and what they need and to determine what doesn't work. But that can't happen if we never get the opportunity for it to pass in the first place. So please, when we speak with you, if you're on one side or the other, to give us the opportunity to at least present you that information for you to spread the information around to let other people decide on how they feel about the charter. As long as you're educated about the charter and you still have disagreements with it, that's perfectly fine, as long as you tell the information that you were given to those people to make up their minds. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Commissioner Killian.
First and foremost, praise to Allah, honor to the Prophet, honor to Miss Evelyn LaDuff, who always challenge a lot of the people that's in this ear span that could hear this and not. She always asks why, and that's all I'm asking citizens here in Pontiac. Why are you for the charter, and why aren't you for the charter? And you should have a resolution by reading it, or at least listening enough to have an open mind to be present amongst those that can say why and have I'll say not a smart answer, but an answer and a solution, because Pontiac needs to move forward. We have changed since 1982, and we need the city to change. I know it's bothersome, I know it's difficult, but we keep expecting the same thing without change to happen. And we're wondering why the city is in the state it is in. And I think if we just took the time to indulge in researching the charter, researching the notes, and the effort that was put into this. Brian Killian, did get on this charter to make it Brian Killian charter, Kermit charter, Gil charter, Jose charter. None of us came to make that. We came collectively together and talked to the citizens in different meetings, different outputs, and this is what we came up with. This is the best thing ever. For me, we put the best in it. Whether you think that or not is up to you. But at least I want y'all to take the time to study it. No, we don't have that much time. We really have to do a fantastic marketing. But I'd rather do a truthful and transparency marketing than a fake, I just want y'all to vote yes for. So I hope y'all hear me and, just take the time. And I really appreciate you, Ms. Spann, giving your comments. They were very important because as one that's out there in the community, you hear a lot of the good and the bad. So that's why I was asking, and I didn't mean to put you on spotlight, but however, I just wanted to know because I know you indulge a lot in the city, so for you to tell us how to go forward was important to me because I know that's how we're going to have to move us forward in the city of Pontiac. So thank y'all on this committee and everybody that came out. Again, honors to all y'all. Thank you.
Commissioner Gary.
Thank you. Great job, Commission, everybody involved to make this charter what it is. I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do. I know I'll be turning 50 this year. So being in this community since I was 19, we have been through some changes, but we've adapted to the changes. And so I do want to encourage the charter members and commissioners is that some people just talk, but they don't have that power. There's folks that just went down to city council and just immediately just said, we ain't passing this. But them the same people who haven't been reelected. So I'm gonna be specific about what I'm talking about. So when I see people like Gloria Span come into a room, she can give me 300, 400 people just by walking in the room. So it's about a strategy and not necessarily just being truthful and not being intimidated by when somebody goes to a mic every week and say something. So I hear it and I say it and I said what I said. The charter will pass because we're truthful and we're honest and we got people to come in and get the information. You don't need 100 people in this room to tell you something about the charter. You just need the right 10 people that know about it. Absolutely. I think we got a lot of great information today. I think Mr. David shared some things that kind of exposed, shed some lights. We have some great talking points that we now as individuals, that if I decide to say, okay, hey, Miss Dawn, she's been out, she hasn't, she coming out for business. I want to get on the podcast with Miss Dawn. Dawn, you heard what the charter is? Can we do a podcast together? That's the simple things like that that's going to make this a different, I think, a different turnout. Now, when we say, I've studied specifically for myself, studied why the charter didn't pass. It was council members who went to their council districts and was like, don't pass this. But there was nobody else in their own individual council districts to go and say, no, your council person don't want to pass because it's going to stop X, Y, and Z. Like, it's specific. That's what happened. And so because I know that, I've been waiting decades to be on this charter commission. And so I think this is a document that can drive us to where we need to be. I believe it's a document that can help us. We have some great things in there. But as individuals, your power as an individual charter commission, we can go out and start having these conversations. And that's just what I've been doing. I've spoken to 2 previous living mayors. Just called them up and was just like, what you think about X, Y, and Z? You had these folks' numbers because they still talking and reaching out to people. We have 7 people who tuned in for the last 2.5 hours. Not one share in 2024. So in that, we've had more conversation with people going with the back and forth, taking certain topics that we're able to do here. I'm looking forward to figuring out which other meetings that we're going to be able to attend. But in the meanwhile, in between, thank you, Commissioner Williams, pointing out the blues, going downtown, setting up a booth, setting up a spot, just to say, let's talk about the charter. And if we all commit to doing that for the next 30 days, I'm just putting what I know my faith in front of me. This charter is gonna pass. If we can just minimize and ignore the folks, again, who spend rhetoric time saying that they do certain things that we all know that they don't. Do not let that fuel you or take away your opportunities to reach that 1, 2, or 3 people. Now I know a lot of this, how I speak as an elected official gets me in a lot of trouble at times because I'm not a true politician. But I like politics. This is my political style. And we're just gonna meet it hands on where it's at. We all come from different backgrounds and different spaces. Pontiac is our home. And Pontiac deserves to be brought up. And we shouldn't be intimidated to say that a person is, no, we're going to pass the charter. You may not want it. You can vote no, you're one person. But we need to start meeting things head on when people start putting things out ahead and change. We've been changing. We can change around it. And we change and we adapt and we resilient. That's what I love about it. These 1 or 2, 10 people that's around here talking about they ain't passing the charter, it's just 10 of them. I guarantee that. There's none of them out here in the community more than anybody sitting at this dining. And so I just want to encourage you to keep going, keep moving, and motivating yourself to just trust this process. All right, thank you. Commissioner Stewart.
Yes, I will dovetail off of what Commissioner Garrett mentions. I always think about change management, right? Any change there's going to be your naysayers, right? There are going to be your people. It is all about the people in the middle, right? It is how we interact with the people in the middle, right? Because there are always going to be people who are going to blast it. And as Gil said, there are people who blasted it before they even looked at it. Oh, I think we had it on the website before they said we're not voting for this. Well, they didn't come and watch these meetings. They didn't do this. And so I always say, Jose texted me actually, and he's like, "Oh God, I'm concerned. People were out blasting the charter." I said, "Don't focus on them. We're never going to change their mind. Their mind will always be set that they will not vote for yes for a charter. The people's minds that we need to change are those that aren't paying attention. They just are like, oh, I didn't know that, but they aren't happy. Who's happy with how our city is operating as a whole, right? The reason that I joined this is because first and foremost, I love city government. But I want city government to run well. And for the most part, when a city government is running well, you don't have to be that engaged. Listen, our people are exhausted, okay? Having to come to a 4 or 5 hour meeting every week is crazy. Not just for our elected officials, but for our residents. I shouldn't have to worry every single 5 seconds that if I don't go to a meeting that all this crazy crap is gonna happen, right? I don't wanna have to worry about that. That's it. We talk about mental health. Shoot, our people are struggling with mental health because we got to worry. Oh God, who's doing this and that and whatever and it. No, like that's one of many things. But like, I don't want to have to worry about what my government is doing. I want to know that they're doing it well and that we have the right things in place to be able to make that well. But most importantly, I think why all of us join this is because, and I think this is different than some others, is while others have done different roles. But what I heard from all my commissioners, the whole cajillion meetings that we had, and I tell you, it's hundreds of hours that we spent doing this, right? Is a true commitment to the residents of this city. That is something that is profound across every single person. So whether you don't like someone else, the thing that I will know, right, is again, compromise. I can't even get a consensus with like my 4 family members on what we want for dinner. Herman mentioned pizza, right? You try to order pizza with everybody, you're like, oh God, okay, never mind. Can we just order separate ones, right? To think about us 9 people who are all very loud, you've heard me talk for hours, we're all very passionate, okay? We're very loud. I swear to you, I had to mediate between some folks on this committee more than I have ever had to mediate in my entire life. I said, oh my God. And then I have a lot of patience, and I still got angry. Right? That is the level of commitment and passion that we had to pass this charter. Right? That's what it says. And so I want to highlight that because having our residents top of mind was the first thing that we had. And so even if you're like, hey, I don't like this, that, whatever, it came with a consensus around we want to do what's best for the residents of this city. That was our first goal. Out of anything. And so I hope that heart and passion for what's doing best for our residents is what highlights what you get out of this, right? That's what I hope. My final thing that I'll say is, listen, if you hear someone saying some crap that they don't know anything about, call us, call any of us. I will gladly talk to anyone every single day if I need to. I will be like Kermit when where he just gets a call every 5 seconds and has to call. Like, I don't care. I want this to pass as much as possible. And so I'd rather have a conversation with you and talk you through pieces rather than someone sit there and be like, oh, shoot, that sucks. So call us, email us, go find me and harass me on Facebook. I do not care. Go and find any of us and talk to us. Please. Please, please, please. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather you talk to me than vote. I can't say that. I'd rather you talk to me than vote thinking that this is not something that's beneficial. So, anyway, that is my thoughts. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming out. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Let's thank Taj, our audio man, running all this stuff, City Hall to make us have a portable meeting, and the Bowen Center staff for keeping their doors open for us today. I'll say this and be brief. I want to say no comment, but my colleagues got me riled up. This is a citizen first charter. The charter in 1982 was a government first charter. This is the new constitution for the city, and I hope people vote in favor of it. I gave up my city council seat for re-election to work on the Charter Revision Commission. It was so important to me to not continue with the kind of government I had saw in my 12 years of sitting on city council where people would not pay lawyer bills for the city council because they chose not to. And if we're honest with ourselves, that was not the best we could do in politics, not the best we could do for our city. And the bottom line is, Pontiac has lost a lot. We went through 3 emergency managers. We lost the Silver Dome. We lost our police department, our fire department, our water treatment department that's worth $1 billion. That now we have people that are working on, still trying to get lead pipes. And I don't have any recourse to get my bridge fixed on Martin Luther King Boulevard. The charter doesn't speak to that. The charter is simply a framework for us to move forward. And what we've done in this charter that nobody's talking about is we added people to all of the major decision-making points in the charter. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit more money for a public integrity officer, but guess who that officer answers to? A citizen board. That makes a difference. Boards and commissions with actual citizens on there. The election board, who's almost didn't certify the election of our current mayor because it was used in a certain way to keep people out of office because there was no citizen on the board. And so when y'all leave this meeting, when y'all watch it on Facebook or YouTube or whatever you're gonna watch it on, make sure you let people know that everything in this is to help the citizens and not to harm the citizens. I don't agree with everything in the charter, but there is nothing dangerous or harmful in the charter. Now, would I do it a different way on some of these things? Yes, but guess what? I got outvoted. But I got outvoted by people who care about the city just as much as I do. And I trust that with this charter, we can make it another 41 years. But the great part about it is we don't have to do that because we put in insight that says that people will be looking at this review. And so everybody who's saying, I want to vote no on the charter, give this charter a chance first. Because nobody in the city of Pontiac is as happy with our government as they should be, because our municipal election has not cracked 10,000 in 20 years out of 35,000 residents that are registered to vote. Meaning that there's people who stay home under this 1982 charter and don't participate in their government. This gives you recourse if your trash is not picked up and your council person doesn't want to do something or the mayor doesn't want to do something. You have an outlet not to have to go to Channel 7, Channel 2, and Channel 4 just to get your pothole fixed. And that's what this charter does. So I'm asking everybody to support this charter, but most importantly, even if you're not going to support the charter, don't speak ill on it without reason. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at whatever time it is, 8:38.
I think we.
Pass those down. Pass those down.
I was gonna.
Oh, you didn't think he was?